everybody. Thank you to the FNB Franchising Summit for inviting me to speak. It really is a great honor to be here. And it's hard to believe that I've been involved in franchising for over 20 years in some way or another, either working for a franchise company or owning a franchise. And for me, it's even harder to believe that what started as one restaurant in Athol 10 years ago has grown to what will soon be 14 stores. Hopefully the next few minutes will take you into my personal journey and that of the brand, which are both inextricably linked, and will demonstrate how we have planned for the future of Tashas. So planning for the future is a subject that obviously resonates with me. The restaurant business and franchising business can be chaotic with many variables to juggle. And what I have found over the years is that the simplest way to plan for the future is to have absolute clarity on what your business does, but more importantly, why your business does what it does. Understanding your own personal why, as well as the why of your business, allows you and your team to focus on important elements of the business and not to be distracted as you're growing it. For me, it has created clear and a defining focus in planning for our future. Okay, so hopefully that got everyone hungry just before lunch. Okay, a little bit about the Tasha story and a brief history about me. I started in the food business in 1994. Never my intention to make running restaurants my full-time job. And while studying at varsity, I used to help my dad at the fishmonger. I went on to work at fishmonger head office as the training manager, opened a few stores for them, then later became the operations manager. I loved it from day one, and for anyone in the audience who's in the restaurant business, and I'm sure there are a few of you, once it gets under your skin, there really is no turning back. I then joined Nino's head office and later bought my own store in 2001. And Malcolm Gladwell, in his book, The Outliers, talks about the 10,000-hour rule. And he says that to be successful in your chosen field, you need to have spent 10,000 hours working in that field. I've never really sat down to work it out, but it'll be 20 odd years this year, and my rough estimation is that's about 100,000 hours. That's without the overtime and the weekends in the restaurants. So I opened Tashas Athol in 2005, where I saw a gap in the market for an upmarket boutique cafe. And the idea was really simple. Create a place that served food fresh on order, made from the best quality ingredients, innovative comfort food, served and made by the most passionate managers and staff that we could find and hire. And obviously all of that to happen in a beautifully designed space. I believe we've created a category in the market and have been pioneers of that category for the last 10 years. And if you looked at daytime eating in 2005, South Africa was really dominated by quick service restaurants, coffee shops, and of course some fine dining restaurants. And I believe that we obviously filled the gap between daytime coffee shops and fine dining restaurants. So when I sat down and I thought, how am I going to actually bring my idea to life? I realized that it needed to be a place that touched the senses by embodying indulgence and abundance, inspiration and aspiration, and a place that was an idyllic setting for customers to experience personalized experiential dining. And that's really important. And I'll elaborate on experiential retail or experiential restaurants or cafes a little bit later on. When I opened the first store, the dream was simply that there were no plans for the future, and it was about making people happy in my cafe. So to stand here and really talk about planning for the future, I think it's absolutely key when you're starting a business and or a franchise or actually buying into a franchise. Before your first step in planning for the future is to get the key elements right and make sure that that first store that you're building, all of the touch points are perfect. And then the future planning will come. I didn't know that in that and in understanding what my why was, and I'll come to it a bit later, is that I was in essence really planning for the future. So why Athol? When I went to visit the suburb, the site was perfect, a great area with a healthy mix of residential and office, and my goal was to become the local hangout from early morning to late afternoon. Later in 2007, I converted my Nino's in Bedfordview to Tashas under extreme pressure from my landlady, and in retrospect, it was the best forced decision I had made. We now have 12 franchise restaurants across the country, soon to be 13 with the opening of an iconic site in Nelson Mandela Square, and last year we opened our first international store in Dubai. So in terms of restaurants and in terms of a franchise model, it's pretty slow growth. 10 years, only 14 stores, so it's a store and a bit a year. But the key thing to remember is obviously that they are complicated. They're full-on restaurants, they're not quick service restaurants, and we have purposefully, or I have rather purposely, planned slow and steady growth as opposed to aggressive rollout of a footprint. So really, what is our business about? So the thought of franchising this bespoke cafe scared me. How was I going to retain this magic, the authenticity, the personalized service? And it was after nights of lying awake that I came up with the idea of personalizing each branch. So I had my store in Athol and I had my store in Bedfordview. And I thought, oh my word, I've done my deal with Famous Brands. What's going to happen? We're going to have 150 stores. They're going to be all over the place and I'm going to lose this personalized brand. And I came up with what really seemed like a crazy idea at the time, was making sure that each store was bespoke. And what I decided is that it wasn't enough to just roll out this cookie cutter model of Tashas. I wanted to break away from the norm and create a special experience in each location. Create a unique spin on each store, a signature unique to each branch that would speak to the area and the customers. And so we custom designed them so that people could connect with them and ultimately not get bored. And I think in summation, which is contradictory to most franchises, the way most franchises work, is create a distinctive franchise format that defies the global franchise model, which favor predictability and uniformity. So it really is the anti-franchise franchise. A lot of people thought I was crazy, creating new restaurants every time, and it isn't an easy task. But it's turned out to be one of the key factors of our success, or at least I believe, where we ensure that each of the stores is 70% of the same, carrying this golden thread and what is typical of a franchise, and the other 30% is unique. We've most recently spun that formula around. In Hyde Park, we flipped that formula around. It's 70% different, 30% the same. And in our latest store in Nelson Mandela Square, which is opening in 2 or 3 weeks' time, we've actually done an 80-20 spin around there. So you'll still be able to get the Tashas classic menu, but in terms of store design, look and feel and experience, we've really, taken it up a couple of levels to more of a fine dining experience, which will be the first time we've done that. So this obviously might seem like a complicated route. The reason why you buy into a franchise or why you start a franchise is because it's simple, easy, bang them out, easy to roll out. But I don't think that we would have been half as successful if we had just rolled them out all looking the same with the same menu. So it's a complicated route, but it's turned out to be a simple formula, which we hope leaves our customers pleasantly surprised, yet always satisfied. While all of our stores have a similar DNA, each one has a signature that influences the food as well as the decor, and no two Tashas are the same. Yet we are in the franchise business. So people used to think that the restaurant business was simply about serving food. So while all of our stores have a similar DNA, they each have their own signature, and if I can give some brief examples of that, we have a store in Rosebank, which is what I always call a microcosm and an example of what South African culture is. It's a whole melting pot and a representation of all the different cultures that are in South Africa. And so we then looked at another city that was similar, and we said, well, New York is similar to that, and so that store's a little bit more urban, and we serve burgers and hot dogs and gourmet milkshakes. And then we have our store in Pretoria in Brooklyn, and we speak to the Afrikaans customer there, and Dutch Huguenot, and we've got pampoen cookies and rooster brookies, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and bobotie, Morris Arch, salmon, oyster, champagne. So we really look at each area, and there aren't random signatures. We really apply our minds and say, what are we going to do? And the most recent one in Nelson Mandela Square, we really talk about Africa and how glamorous Africa can really be, and so that store will have an African twist on it. And it really is about creating an experience. People used to think that the restaurant business was simply about serving food. This has changed dramatically in recent years, and it's now about creating a real experience. People talk about the experience economy. It's no longer good enough just to provide a commodity. You must be able to provide an experience or even a lifestyle. And Joseph Pine, in his book, The Experience Economy, says, there is a new economic era in which all businesses must orchestrate memorable events for their customers. And our business is about quality and substance rather than quantity and size. And I think one of the key things that I've learned about planning for the future of the Tashas business is to know that what we stand for, and again, why we actually do what we do. So we've built our business on this, and we continue to do so. And in summation, our business is about beautiful food, a stunning environment. Interiors play a very important role for us, and obviously engagingly delivered, training our staff, making sure the staff and the managers are delivering that experience, and that even the back of house staff buy into that. So the world's simplest idea. A little earlier, I mentioned that I feel it's important to have a clear purpose and understand clearly your why. And you need that in order to plan properly for the future. And this really is the simplest idea. So how do we articulate this philosophy? How do we make this idea that I had come to life? How do we make sure that every decision we make is being true to our beliefs for the business? And how do we make sure that as our business grows, that we remain true to our brand and consistently delight our customers? So recently this penny dropped after I watched an incredible video that talks about the world's simplest idea. And it gave me absolute clarity and made sense of what I'd been trying to articulate to franchisees, staff, customers, and really anyone who was interested in listening. Simon Sinek calls the world's simplest idea the golden circle. And it resonated with me on a very deep level and has become an important tool that I often refer to and come back to as we look ahead, and has brought simplicity to our business and focus to me as the managing executive. When you're juggling so many variables and you're trying to articulate this idea to people and to your staff, how do you do that? So Simon Sinek refers to Apple in his talk, and it's an easy example to understand. If Apple was like everyone else, a marketing message might sound like, we make great computers, they're beautifully designed, do you want to buy one? And that's how most computer places or most computer manufacturers communicate with their customers, and that's how most businesses communicate. But we need to communicate from the inside out. So I'll just show you the Apple example. He says, why? Everything we do, we believe in thinking differently and changing the status quo. This is Apple. How do we do it? The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products simple to use and user-friendly. What do? We just happen to make great computers. Do you want to buy one? So then I started thinking about, if I could take the essence of what Tashas is and really distill what our why is, this would be the simplest way to communicate to our customers, franchisees, staff. So, at Tashas, why? Everything we do is done to make people feel great. Pure hospitality. How do we do it? We serve beautiful food in stunning environments, and we try to deliver them engagingly. What do? We just happen to run a franchise restaurant business. Want to work with us, franchise with us, eat with us. And I think when you're building a business, if you can really distill what your why is, and our why was really simple. Make people feel good. When I opened that first store in Athol, I didn't have this massive dream. I didn't think that I would be going all over the globe looking at expanding my restaurant business. I actually didn't even think I'd have second, third, or fourth. The idea was really simple. Open the store in Athol, make sure I'm serving really good food, make sure the store looks beautiful, and make sure the staff are making our customers happy, and make sure that I'm making my staff happy. And it boils down to pure hospitality. And then we built around it. And I didn't actually know we had done this until I'd watched the video, and then it made sense. So at the core of our business is hospitality, and hospitality is paying tribute to and honoring customers that are seeking perfection in food and ambience, and at the same time as being served by outstanding staff. So you can see that my personal why and that of Tashas are inextricably linked. And this has been the core and fundamental principle on which we have grown and continue to grow the Tashas brand. So our simple truths, or my thoughts on rather planning for the future. So how do we plan for the future at Tashas now that we have these 13 stores and we've embarked on an international journey? Number one is to obviously know your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? 2, choose the right franchisees, staff, and landlords that understand and will support your why. So don't employ people or don't get franchisees on board that don't understand hospitality, that don't want to make people happy. You need to engage with these types of people. You need to employ those types of people. Hire for the hospitality quotient. Train your people, love your customers, constantly innovate, and lastly, know that without attention to detail, there is no bigger picture. And that applies to any business in the food business, whether it's QSR, whether it's a little takeaway on the corner that wants to become a franchise, whether it's a big chain that's got 100 stores. Without attention to detail, there is really no bigger picture. So going international, expanding the Tashas business into Dubai wasn't a simple decision. We spent 2 years doing research. We recognized that there was a similar opportunity in Dubai as there was in Johannesburg. And when we opened our first store in Tashas Athol, I looked around and I said, and when I flew to Dubai, I said, well, this is actually quite similar. It might seem like an anomaly or a contradiction because Dubai is in the middle of the desert with a lot of Arab-speaking people and a big expat society. So how is it similar to Johannesburg? It's a driving culture. It's a mall culture. It's a culture where people like to meet each other in coffee shops and engage and do business in restaurants and cafes. I had been approached by people in Australia, London, where the barriers to entry are quite hectic and difficult. And for me, it just felt right to open in Dubai after a lot of investigation. And you need to be absolutely sure that you've got a strong foundation in your home market before expanding. Going international isn't an overnight decision. You have to understand the market you want to go into, the culture, the laws, the competition, the geography. So if there are any businesses out there that are thinking about taking their brand overseas, there's been many South African brands who've tried to export their business overseas. Some have failed, some have really succeeded, but you really have to understand what the cultures, the laws, the competition. You can't simply take your product and just say, I'm going to export it. And be clear that the new market will accept the new brand. So understanding that you have a strong foundation. Site selection is obviously critical. In any country, the same thing applies. How do you choose the right sites? We've been extremely blessed. We've had a 100% success rate in every site that we've chosen, and I really believe that's due to the fact that it's been 1, slow and steady growth, 2, really looking at the market and saying, will Tashas work here? And we've been extremely careful and cautious in choosing our sites. Same thing as when you expand overseas. We're about to open another 3 stores in Dubai. Are they right for the Tashas brand? Is the customer going to understand the product? Is it the right LSM group? Working with a similar time zone makes the world of difference. We were offered a fantastic site in Australia, which I turned down just because I knew that I couldn't get on a plane easily enough. We've got a problem in the store, massive time zone issue. Whereas if there's a problem in the store in Dubai, get on a flight, 7 o'clock, you're there at 5 in the morning. You can deal with the issue and the store can phone you all the time, and I think that's important as you're expanding. And then finding the right franchisees and partners and staff on the ground, and using your existing staff from the home market. What we did is we took 35 or 40 South Africans who are still there, and they're all working in the store, and they've taken the Tashas culture and really made sure that it's entrenched in Dubai. Because what you don't want to do is take your brand and try and morph it into the other market. You still want people to know that you're South African. Use resources from your home country, and that's basically, if you need to be absolutely, you have to be absolutely sure about the quality delivery. So getting your South African products there, what are the things that you're going to take there, what are the things that you can actually have made there to cut your expenses. It really has been a fantastic journey in terms of expanding the brand. And to be able to stand up here and talk to a room full of people who are interested in franchising, and the unique way in which we have actually managed to franchise our concept, is really an honor. So thank you for allowing me to chat to you, and I hope I gave you some good insights. Planning for the future is not just about how you're going to grow bigger. It's about understanding how, as you do, you retain the integrity and authenticity of your why and your brand. And I think if you manage to do that, then the plan will unfold as it's supposed to. If you are really retaining that core of what your business is about and you don't allow it to get diluted, planning for the future becomes not simple or easy, but it's a lot more clear.
Thank you very, very much indeed. I mean, from what I was getting from you speaking,
yes.
And you said that, the personal and the business, it's all one thing.
It's all linked.
The hard thing with that then is you can only be you once in this entire lifetime.
Yes.
How do you get you in all these locations?
Okay, so that's a really good question. I think a lot boils down to training. Yeah. It's obviously a hindrance on growth, and how do you go from 14 stores to 20, 30, 40 internationally, and that, because of that reason and because of me being so linked into every level of the brand, it does slow down growth quite a lot. But I'm lucky to be surrounded by a team at head office who thinks the way I do, talks the way I do, and always asks the question, is this how Tasha would do it? So obviously I can't be at all the stores all the time, or as much as I'd like to be, but certainly one of the key things for us, and I think why our stores have been successful, is that either myself or my brother, Sava, who's my partner, is at every single store opening for at least a month or 6 weeks. And I think in normal franchising, and I stand corrected, and I don't know how any other brands work, but I think in a normal franchise model, franchisee gets handed the keys after a couple of days or a week. And we hold our franchisees' hands for a while. And they say it takes 21 days to form a habit, or what they call the mirror neurons. And eventually, if people see you doing something, they will start copying you. So I think that's been part of the reason of the success is, being in the stores in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, when you spoke about the start, there was almost like this, I won't use the word casual, but kind of, you didn't overthink too much. You didn't.
Yeah.
You kind of felt your way through. Is there a danger when you start getting to a certain size that actually starts to become more technical? It starts to be more scientific?
Absolutely. So, actually, you've asked a very good question, because 2 young guys have come to me and said, we've got a great product, which I tasted and I thought it was fantastic. Will you give us advice on how to expand? And my advice to them was, get your first store perfect. And that's really what I was trying to say. It's not about being casual. I said, I'm not going to have a business until I can get the first one right. And I think a lot of people tend to overthink and to overplan. You can't think about the future, and you can't plan for the future if you don't have the fundamentals and the basics right. So really, at that first store at Athol and at Bedford View, it was about making sure, one, that the model worked, that people were going to like the product, how much were the stores going to cost, etc., etc. Certainly, there is a tipping point, and I think that happened after store 4 or 5, where you start thinking, okay, what's the strategy? I'm never going to open more than 15, or I'm never going to open more than 16. And then when you've sort of reached that number, which we have now, we're opening another 3 in South Africa, and then I'm going to draw a line in the sand and just consolidate. How many are we going to do in Dubai? So there certainly is a tipping point. You can't just say, well, I'll just go with the flow. And not that I was just going with the flow, I was making sure that the concept was right. Because I think for a lot of young entrepreneurs out there, they're sort of running before they're even crawling. Don't overthink it. Just get that first store right. And then you can think about expanding.
Any questions?
Thank you for a wonderful talk.
Thank you.
My question would just be, how has joining the Famous Brands stable impacted your business as well?
I think in the early days, the market was really nervous about the JV with Famous Brands. I think they're the kings of franchising. They've demonstrated that. They've got thousands of stores. So people saw a bit of a disconnect between this really bespoke brand and this company who rolls out mass brands. So I was very cautious in the beginning to allay all concerns of people thinking there was going to be a Tashas on every corner. On a personal level, I think it's been the most fantastic thing that's ever happened to the business. I'm artistic and I'm a restaurateur and I wear my apron and I'm not corporate at all. But when you get to a business of this size that's doing the turnovers that we're doing, you really need a big brother partner who's going to keep, I didn't know what a balance sheet looked like. I didn't know what an income statement looked like. I didn't even know what a business plan was. So joining a group like Famous Brands has brought a certain level of stability. Where our partnership is really great is that they control admin, and they make sure that that side of the business is working, and we really control operations, food, and what the stores are going to look like. And so there's no crossover. And I think defining your roles, if you are going to do a JV with a big corporate, is making sure that you've defined those roles early on. Because if the lines start to blur, then your why sort of can get diluted. And I was very clear in the beginning, 15, 16 stores in South Africa, no oversaturation in the market. And Famous Brands has bought into that idea. So it's been really great.
We're talking about trends and the way things are changing and shifting,
Quickly.
and they're moving at the speed of light.
Yeah.
And over the years, there have been some great brands, great restaurants who they came at exactly the right time with a new idea, but then the times changed.
Yes.
And then they somehow fell away. Are you already thinking about what Tashas is going to look and feel like in the future?
I think one of our key factors is the fact that each one is unique and you can tailor make them. So as the times are changing, you can adapt, and then you can look at the market and say, what's missing? The danger in that is people not understanding who you are. So it's a really fine balance. There's a double-edged sword to innovation. There's a restaurant in Cape Town, I don't know if anyone knows it, La Perla, or Bellini's in Ilova. They've never changed who they are. Everyone knows you're going to get the same food. The menu doesn't change. And people go there because, it's a stable. Yeah. In our business, we can't do that because there's young and up-and-coming brands, and we've got to, really make sure that we're keeping on top of things. But you can't over-innovate because then people get confused, and you can't be everything to everyone. And I think that's another danger. A lot of people in the food business will start out serving burgers, and then they panic, and all of a sudden they're serving nachos and fish and chips. It doesn't work. You got to be focused. We're lucky because I came up with this idea of signatures, and so we can tailor make as we go and watch what's happening, and sort of chop and change.
Hi, Natasha.
Hi.
Thanks for the talk.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, I'm sure it's different for everyone, but you can see your passion and how meticulous you are with all the different elements of your business. But for you, how would you say that you choose your franchisees? What are the key elements that you look for specifically for someone who wants to own a Tashas?
Okay. Obviously, experience is one. You want your franchisees to have a certain amount of experience in the food business. Two, actually before that, they've got to love people. One of the key aspects of our business, and at the core of everything that we do, our franchisees have got to want to serve people. And so that's one of the key factors. They've got to have the finance, a good site, and we either come up with a site or a franchisee will bring us a site. And then they have to understand that it is not a normal franchise where you can just put in managers and allow the store to run. Because there are certain franchise models that are much easier. So if you take a burger chain, you're rolling out the burgers, not that the owner doesn't have to be there. But in ours, we really are creating an experience. And in order to do that, the franchisee's got to be really involved. So they've got to want to give up a lot of their personal time and have commitment to the business. But I'd say at the heart of it is experience, and they've got to be people pleasers.
There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please, a big hand